to the town centre public realm. This meeting will be held under the regulations allowing local authorities to meet formally using remote technology. Remote meetings are still a very new experience for the Town Council, so please do bear with us while we set out how this meeting will be conducted. The Town Council is using the Microsoft Office Live events platform to hold this meeting. Our standing orders have been updated to allow this to happen by the adoption of the remote meetings protocol and by procedure rules. This meeting is being streamed live and is available to view on our website. It is very important for everyone joining this meeting, whether they are viewing or participating, to switch all mobile devices to silent for the duration of the meeting. It is also important that those of you participating keep your microphones on mute using the toolbar on your screen when you are not speaking to reduce the disruption from background noise. At the start of the meeting, the town clerk will ensure those members and officers required for this meeting are present by calling a register and asking each to confirm that they are present. Throughout the meeting, councillors should have their chat window open, as this will enable to indicate when you wish to speak or leave the meeting. It is important that you can see this window, as this is the mechanism that will be used to monitor the participation throughout the meeting. The Deputy Mayor or Assistant Town Clerk may prompt me if there are any questions or statements from members that are outstanding. When your name is called, you will need to unmute your microphone using the toolbar on your screen and wait for the word live and the red line to appear around your screen. Please ensure that you speak clearly. Most decisions will be made by general assent of those present. However, if a vote is required, each councillor's name will be read out by me or the Assistant Town Clerk in alphabetical order, and you will be asked to state whether you are for, against, or abstain. If at any time the Town Council's technology fails and we need to adjourn the meeting for a short period, I will confirm this and ask all those present to turn their cameras off and mute their microphones while the problem is rectified. I will then confirm when the meeting resumes. We can only monitor our technology and cannot halt the meeting if a member of the press or public experiences technology issues. I will now ask the Town Clerk to carry out a roll call of all officers, councillors, and ask you to confirm that you are present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should just read this in alphabetical order. I'm aware that Councillor Baker has sent her apologies, so carrying on from there, Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Buckland.
Present.
Councillor Chase.
Present.
Councillor Long.
Present.
Councillor Malloy.
Present.
Councillor Northeast.
Present.
Councillor Price.
Present.
Councillor Rhodes.
Present.
Councillor Seeks.
Present.
Councillor Tandy.
Present.
Councillor Turner.
Present.
And Councillor Dr. Walsh.
Present.
Thank you. Mobile phones. Members are reminded to switch their mobile devices to silent for the duration of the meeting, and they are asked to note the previously approved protocol for remote meetings, which is in place for the duration of the meeting. I'll now ask the Town Clerk to, sorry, we have done the apologies. Moving on to the next item, declarations of interest. Where standard declarations are noted, members and officers are invited to make any other declarations if they become apparent and appropriate during the meeting. And are there any other further direct declarations?
Yes, Chairman. I know it's in the standing declaration, but I have to re-declare it at the beginning of the meeting. I'm the leader of our district council, and it relates to this item.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. Public forum. I do not believe we have any questions at all from the public.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Next item on the agenda is Mayor's reported urgent items. There are no urgent items, and the Mayor's report will be very brief. As you will all be fully aware, I'm extremely busy planning. Please turn to page 3 on your agenda papers, and I will ask the Town Clerk to take us through this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very brief report because much of the paperwork went to the Policy and Finance Committee and had a very detailed and thorough discussion there. There are a series of recommendations on the report which come from that committee, and these include a couple of items which were actually within the purview of that committee, but because there was a technical problem, it was thought better to bring these as a recommendation to council rather than have any quibbling whatsoever about their correctness. So the way that we were looking to do this was so I would give you this brief introduction. Denise Vine from Arran District Council gave a presentation which has been available before to the Policy and Finance Committee, but because only some members have seen it, and it would help any further discussion afterwards, so to do it again. So Denise will do that, then we can open it up to any questions as such, and then, which I will try and answer all Denise, and then we'll go to the recommendations. So without any further ado, if Denise is ready, I will pass over to her.
Thank you, Peter, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for letting me talk today. I'm just going to call up the presentation on the system. This is always the tricky moment. Will it appear? So fingers crossed. So just checking how well you can see that. Is that okay for you all?
Yeah, great.
Good. Okay.
Perfect.
Brilliant. Okay, so again, sort of thank you very much for letting me come and talk to you today. As Peter's explained, this presentation was given to the Policy and Finance Committee a few weeks ago. I'll go through all the slides, but probably won't dwell on some of the information quite as much as I did last time. But if there's any additional information or questions you want to ask me, then please do. Okay.
Denise, can I ask you to point out, if you are putting the whole presentation, to point out which is the recommendations from the Policy and Finance Committee?
I certainly will, yes, of course. So this first slide, this is a new slide that we've put together, and particularly because Councillor Blanchard Cooper asked for it, because because this project's been knocking around for quite some time now. It's really, I do appreciate for a lot of members new or haven't been used to the project, it's hard to really capture really the journey that it's taken and how long it's taken us to get here, and it has been a long time. So what this slide shows you is that really the idea of making improvements to public realm was first talked about with the Littlehampton 2020 vision and the master plan within that, and it was really saying that there was a need to improve the public realm and create a focus on improvement around the linkages, and this link goes back to the sort of desire that's been always there, that we need to really encourage anyone visiting Littlehampton to know that if they come to the town centre, the riverside and the seafront is very nearby, and vice versa. People visiting the seafront know that the town centre is nearby. That's not always known. So then in 2014, again with the wayfinding directional ideas around to make improvements to Littlehampton, 9 big ideas were put forward, and these were very much about the linkages, again bringing focal points on those journeys between those 3 points, what could be done, what could be improved, and some ideas were put forward by the designers that we were working with at that time. Some of them were quite ambitious and probably wouldn't be able to deliver, but we did scrutinise them, and then in 2015 the council looked at those 9 big ideas and decided to prioritise those based on what can be delivered, what could be achieved of those. And the one with the sort of top likelihood of being delivered was improvements to the public realm in the High Street and town centre. So based on that recommendation from our councillors at that time, we followed through on that and got some money to do some initial design work, and LDA Designs were appointed to do that work. And I want to pick up on talking about LDA Designs at this point because we are so lucky to have such a reputable and well-known design company doing this for us. They've done the Olympic Park, they've done loads of prestigious schemes working all over the country at this moment in time, and for us to get them to come down and do this, we were very fortunate. The reason they were keen to do it as much as we wanted them is because they'd already done a few schemes locally along the riverside, the scheme in Bognor Regis, and they genuinely have an affection and interest in what happens to the town. So they were quite delighted to get this commission, and we were pleased that they could work with us. At that same time, the Riverside Walkway was completed, and that's another £2 million project that they had contributed or worked on. Then in 2016, we took it a bit further with our LDA Designs, and they did some consultation with the public, traders, members were involved, asking them what they thought about the town centre, how it could be improved, what needed to be done to make it better. And there was good support from that consultation that people said, yes, we'd like to see these improvements come forward. And then further in July, council approved what were the concept designs, which are on our website, have been since that time, about what LDA Designs thought could be done to improve the public realm. The challenge for us then, we have the designs, we have the agreement to take this forward, is to get the money to do this, and we didn't have any money. So we were instructed to look for that money, and the first opportunity that we had for external funding was through the Coastal Community Fund. This was for all 5 phases of the project. It was over £5 million in terms of a bid, and we weren't successful. We were naturally very disappointed and went back to the funders and said why. And they said there was absolutely nothing wrong with your project. We loved it. It did everything we wanted it to do. It was just too much money. We didn't have enough to share out to give you that larger bid. So in 2019, the funding was opened again, and we went back to them and said, we want to resubmit. And they said, yes, we would like to receive your submission. But what we gauged from the comments last time, and to improve our chances of success, is that we put in a smaller scheme. That's when we decided to put in just phase 1 and 2 of the scheme, which is the piece from the railway station to the end of the high street, stops off before Beach Road. That was for £2.49 million, and we were successful. So we began progressing with that project. However, in July of 2019, there was another opportunity to bid for funding from a scheme called the Local Growth Fund, and that's from the local LEP. So we put forward the proposal for phase 3 of the project. We asked for £1.4 million. They only gave us 41% of that grant, so that is £564,000. However, it did mean we had a bit more money in the pot to take the scheme forward. What happened then for that shortfall, around just over £400,000, we approached the town council and the district council and said, could you make up the difference, £200,000 each, to enable this third phase to go ahead? Both councils agreed. We were really delighted with that, and now we're able to deliver phase 1, 2 and 3 of the scheme. We're at the delivery point of the project and have appointed in 2020 the project managers for the technical team. I just want to pick up here about the funding, because this has been questioned a few times by other people, whether they feel this is the right time to go with this project or not. Firstly, I would just to explain, this funding can only be used for this purpose. We cannot choose to use it on something else. Government are very clear on that, and whatever we may feel about other priorities at this time, if we wish to use this money, if we want to spend £3.5 million on our town centre to improve it, this is our only chance to do it, and we would have to give back the money if we didn't use it. Furthermore, the money from the local growth fund comes from our local LEP, and if that money was given back to the LEP, they wouldn't give that back to central government. They would give it to our neighbouring councils to spend on their projects. So it will be a double loss to us. Not only do we not spend it on our local project, but our neighbouring partners would get some of that money as well. So I just wanted to be really clear, because this is mentioned a few times, that there is an opportunity to give this money up to spend on something else. This is our only chance to spend it on this, and we've put a large pot of money together. Equally, I would counter that and say, if ever we were going to invest on our town centre, this is the time to do it. Our shops and town centre will be suffering over the coming months and years, and to demonstrate this reinvestment, rejuvenation of the town centre now is absolutely the right time to do it. And I think we're in a very fortunate position at this time. I mentioned LDA Designs and their reputation. One of the first things they did when they came to Littlehampton was just have a look around, see what it looks like, see what their first impressions were of the public realm. Recognising that, you know, sort of that we have established public realm at this time, but their impressions as designers was that the space is quite cluttered at the moment, that it's dominated by certain features because of some of the locations, of some of the planting and the seating. It makes the space inflexible for us to do bigger events, and also in their view some of the placement of some of the fixtures meant that there was a reduction in the connectivity between each areas. They also picked up on some of the paving. They felt that there was an inconsistency with it. It had deteriorated over time, and in fact some of it was hazardous or presented obstacles to pedestrians. Also, in their view, the maritime theme was outdated and didn't yet, although very cherished locally, perhaps was overused and was lost in the message that was being put across. Another significant thing for them is the oversized traffic junctions, particularly coming out of the station and at the top of Beach Road, and also around the memorial. So from their point of view, that it was very traffic dominated in these junctions, and it discouraged pedestrians to walk across them. And this photograph probably illustrates that pedestrians do not necessarily, they will follow the desire lines that they want to walk rather than the way the paving or the curbs are suggesting that they can walk. From their view, this is their focus once they've done their analysis of the town centre. Really need to connect the town, the river and the sea. We know that. We want those to be clear connections between those 3 points. But also they really felt that there was some lovely architecture in the town that was being, which couldn't be seen very well, that by improving the public realm, they could enhance all those things. They felt it was important to embrace the new, to bring something new to the town centre, but also to respect the heritage through our buildings. What they want to do is make these public spaces more usable, allow people to want to sit in them, to feel a sense of place, and also to be of high quality. An example of this, they feel that Clifton Road is an underused space. It's somewhere that people drive through at the moment, but with some imagination and new paving, new seating, it will become more dominated by pedestrians, not by the vehicles, and you can create the cafe culture that is so popular in other places. This one is talking about what's happening outside the town station and some other points. When you come out of the town station at the moment, there's a real lack of understanding of where do you go next, left, right, forward, nothing, there's no intuitive messages to say walk this way, and the new improvements in this area will definitely say that. The paving, the colouring will all say this is the way to the town centre, walk this way. This is an example of that that's happened in other places that they've worked with or know of. Around here, this is looking at this junction. It's this piece of road, although it's one way, has two lanes to it. Most of the time, traffic runs down the middle of the road. There is little reason to have 2 lanes here. It's very confusing for pedestrians, and also when they get to the junction at the top by the roundabout. So they're encouraging a narrowing of this piece of roadway and to enhance that. And that's their idea of how that look, widening the pavements, creating 1 lane for the traffic, so that it's better used for pedestrians. This is what they put together in terms of their colour palette. They want to reference really its restrained approach, you know, greys, some subtle tones, some aqua tones as well, and thinking of colours that you might see in nature, particularly the weathered timber benches or timber woods that you might see around. Again, the same with the paving. Their thoughts were to bring out within this the identity of the coastal town, different textures, different colours, pebbles within it, little piece, sort of a mosaic feel around it. So that was their thinking with how the pavement might work. And this is an example of that. It's a patchwork of smaller pavings, but with different colours and quite light in places, but not all over. They've looked at tree options. Next slide we'll talk about tamarisk, but I know some people aren't in favour of that. So they've looked at sort of what other tree options might be suitable. We still have to think about location. We're near the sea, there's salt in the air, certain trees are not suitable in every location. So these are the ones that they have put forward, but that will emerge more as we sort of find out where we can actually plant the trees and the detail of that. And this was some of the options they put forward with tamarisk. But what they're trying to demonstrate here is just that the architecture that can be created by using trees in certain places. From their point of view, the way to reference the history and the sort of identity of the place is looking at its heritage for Littlehampton, for, you know, looking at the fishing history. You could have creative elements within the scheme that show fish scales, looking at the natural wood to reference the boat making industry. So there's lots of ways of doing that that are can be timeless and reinforce that identity. These are a few examples of work that they've done previously, and it's just showing how wood can be used in this situation. One of their projects is also the East Bank at Littlehampton, which you'll be familiar with. Just put this slide in so you're aware of another part of the project, which is to introduce the ghost signs in some locations. These will be against shop walls, obviously with the agreement of the owners, and we wanted to create an art project around that. This document shows you the extent of the scheme. So on the left-hand side, top left, that's the town station where it starts. That's phase 1. Moving down along the high street past Sainsbury's, along to the top of Beach Road, and then down to the bottom right through Beach Road itself. So that is phase 1, 2 and 3. The greyed out areas are stages 4 and 5, and obviously we would like to bid for funding as that comes about in the future to continue the scheme. I've just picked out this one junction because some comments came out of this previously. So this picture on the bottom left is the artist's impression of what this junction might look like. And I have to really say it is the artist's impression. When we were speaking to the designers early in the week, because they're going to present this also at the Littlehampton Regen Subcommittee next week, they were clearly explaining these are artists' impression of what we expect it to look at. You know, there will be absolute attention given to curb heights, you know, demarcation, so people who are partially sighted can understand all this. Those sorts of details will emerge as we go through the technical stage of the project. This table is just to remind you of the funding that we've got for this project. So as I mentioned at the start, just under £3.5 million in total, contributions from the Littlehampton Town Council, Arran District Council. Biggest chunk of money is from the Coastal Communities Fund, and then a further piece of money from the Local Enterprise Partnership. Just to clarify, we've had a notice from the Local Growth Fund that their contribution, they wish that to be spent very quickly. So there is pressure to proceed with the project. This slide refers to the clock tower. The previous meeting had quite a long discussion with the members of that group regarding the clock tower. The landscape designers, in their view, suggested that the clock tower was removed. Members put forward their views that either it should be moved to a different place, retained where it was, or a new structure was introduced. We were instructed to look at what a new structure might look like. This was the option put forward after consultation with members. It shows a metal structure with space underneath, and the view that you're seeing here is sort of daytime, twilight, and evening when it is illuminated. If I go back to that, so it's just to say, so as a consequence of the meeting at the Policy and Finance meeting, the recommendation was to retain the existing clock tower. The other thing we talked about at the last meeting was seating. We've had a number of options regarding seating. This is what we call option 2, tree seating. That's just the name of the company that produces it. The key thing around seating that was being suggested is that we did need a back on the seating. It did need arms, and there was some comments regarding bins and also single seats. This is the other option on the seating, which was called natural elements. This was one of the two that were preferred, and the instruction on this one was to investigate the possibility of the end panels, the core 10 panel at the end, if those could be personalised to reference Littlehampton and anything locally. So we're looking into that. So this is where we are with the project at this time. Next steps of delivery. We are at this moment preparing the tender pack. We hope to issue that very soon. We would wish to appoint a contractor in July. The design detail, Reba Stage 3 and 4, will be developed in September and November. Then this is an old slide, but that we were looking to begin on site a phased implementation during December. The feedback from the last meeting that I had with the Town Council was the need to really delay that until January. So that has been noted, and that will be fed into the tender document to avoid any detrimental impact on the retailers. And then we're looking at completion in 2021. So that's the end of the slide. It's just to ask if there's any questions.
I'd like to thank you for your presentation, Denise.
Thank you.
I will now open the meeting to questions. Can I remind members that they have the chat window open as this enables you, and the Town Clerk or Deputy Mayor, Assistant Town Clerk will prompt me. I have made a list, and hopefully they are in the right order, even though one of them looked to have swapped. If you please address all questions to me, and I will respond or ask officers to do so if required. And first question is Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chair. Have I gone live? Yeah, right, okay. I'm not going to talk too much about the pavement because I know we've got to have the money's got to be spent on the pavement. I get that. I watched the meeting before. However, my issue is the pavement's not cleaned now. Obviously it's cleaned for like a bit of chewing gum, but it's not cleaned enough to be able to see the waves of the pavement that was supposed to be there when it was there. So how is this all going to be cleaned from the train station all the way down to Beach Road to keep it nice? Is there money that we can put aside for that to keep it all nice and looking good? Because obviously we spent all the money on the pavement before and it isn't cleaned regularly. You said that we have to give the money back if we don't spend it, and I can 100% get that too. However, what date do we have to give it back? You know, due to the COVID situation, can we not put it back to 2021? Because yes, I understand that in the recommendations which were noted that we would put it back to maybe January, February 2021, but can we put it back further due to this? So that would be a question. I really liked the signs going on the walls of the shops to head people in the directions. I thought that was a really good idea, but it just worries me about how many empty shops are going to be in Littlehampton with this lovely new design and pavement and everything. So that's a worry. With the new bins that you showed that are made from the wood or however they're going to be made, will there be recycling bins as well, like they've done in other big towns, so that you can put your rubbish, but you can also, there is a recycling initiative as well. And we did talk in one of our town council meetings about having a water station somewhere in the town. Something to, I think it was Emily, Councillor Seeks, that was talking about that, and Councillor Malloy. So would there be provision to sort of put that in and around as well? And I think that is all my, oh, and how would you stop vehicles driving down the road? Obviously vehicles aren't supposed to come down Clifton Road and cut through and go past Boots and come off into Beach Road, that area, but obviously they do now. So how would you stop the cars sort of going through the town centre as they do? And I think that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Can I ask you to come back on that, please, Denise?
Yes, certainly. So just taking it in order, cleaning. Yeah, if you have something nice, you want it cleaned more regularly. We do get the Bognor one cleaned quite often now because it's quite a light surface. So I think it's about introducing that cleaning regime. I'm not responsible for those services. That comes under Philippa Dart, but I think we could certainly sort of check that out as part of the project that was moved forward. Then delaying the funding. In a way, we're quite late on starting with the funding anyway. The Local Growth Fund have said to me, and I have to reply to them tomorrow, in fact, saying, are you going to spend our money by the 31st of March 2021? And I'm going to say yes, because if I don't say yes, they will take it back. So I have no flexibility on that whatsoever. Coastal Communities Fund, there is a deadline for spending on that. I think we are a bit tight anyway, and we may be, once we have a better understanding of the contractor, when they will deliver, we'll be talking to them to say we might be a little bit late. But I can't really see any benefit in postponing it for any time whatsoever. I think we just have to crack on at this moment of time. There's delay wouldn't help us, you know. Delay through just weather or issues that are unforeseen with the construction is one thing, but just to stall, I don't see what would be beneficial, because we have all the project team in place, the professional team. It just wouldn't be efficient to do that. Looking recycling bins, yeah, the other meeting mentioned that, and since that meeting we've been investigating it. Unfortunately, the feedback has been not great from our service colleagues. Problem with recycling bins in town centres is, unfortunately, people don't recycle. They put normal rubbish in the recycling bin, and then that rubbish is taken away and it's just put with the general rubbish anyway. Their experience of recycling bins in smaller places hasn't been great. We're investigating further, but at this moment in time, they weren't recommending it because they didn't think it would have the impact what we want, which is people to recycle. And the water station, yes, has definitely been mentioned, and it's on the list of employer requirements that we're putting into the tender. So thank you. Oh, traffic. Yeah, you're right. How do we stop people driving through there? What we do is traffic regulation orders. We did this in London Road in Bognor Regis. I was astonished actually when I first started working here that you go down London Road in Bognor Regis, and even though it's a precinct, people drove down that road, and with people walking down it. What we have to do is bring in traffic regulation orders and then enforce them. You have to give people tickets to get them used to the idea that if they do not follow the regulations, there will be fines attached to that. And generally, people's habits change after a while and they get used to that enforcement, and that's what's happened in Bognor Regis. So that's, hopefully I've covered everything there.
So will there be, sorry, just to come back on the last one with the, will there be someone else sort of enforcing that as soon as it's done? Will they start enforcing that? Because as we know, you know, you might only see a traffic warden in Littlehampton Town Centre once a day, or, you know, will that completely be enforced straight away?
Yeah, what we would do is really work with our colleagues who work in enforcement and just say, look, this is an issue. We need it to be given some targeted attention for a period of time so people get used to this. Obviously, they're working all over the districts. It's very hard for them. They've got to cover lots of places. But usually with their cooperation, we can do some targeted enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Next, I have Councillor North East.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I first say I was pleased that the committee were persuaded to keep the clock as it is amongst all the other proposals, which I believe, like many others, including traders, are not needed. There are other things the money could be spent on, better spent on. And that is within the spirit of the grant. I do realise the restrictions on the grant, but I do think there is flexibility and movement within that grant for us to spend that money. My opposition to these proposals are because they add no character or uniqueness to our town, because they're simply an off-the-shelf design mirrored by many other towns up and down the country. The design we have at present was specifically designed for us, although since some of it has been copied, and I'll take that as flattery more than anything. And it was designed to keep maintenance costs down. The paving is of the highest quality, with a unique wave design, as was pointed out just now. It just needs a good, powerful jet wash to bring it back to its new look. The street furniture can be restored to like new with just a pot of black paint. That's keeping maintenance costs down to a minimum. Who will bear the high maintenance costs of all the proposed wooden furniture? We know now that skateboarders use it down there. We know from the slatted seat on the seafront just how much maintenance that needs year round. Apart from that, everything we have now is based around our nautical themed heritage, and that's something we should be proud of, which helps create that all-important link between the town, river and seafront. The new design removes that link isolating the town again. Also, our traders, just coming out of the worst period in retail history, do not want the disruption of the guts being ripped out of the high street. And to say it can be done in sections is very naive. It was done in sections last time, and it still created major disruption and problems for the traders. Because of COVID, we can legitimately ask the government for an extension to the time limit on the spending of this money, and let's have another fresh look at this and get it right. I said that there are other areas this grant can be spent on within the remit that will actually enhance what we've got. The report itself refers to other areas, greyed out areas, that have to be put on hold because we don't have the money to do them now. Well, let's look at bringing them forward. We won't be thanked for throwing money at the wrong things in the wrong areas. That will do nothing to increase the vibrancy and footfall in the town. It's a different world now. Because of that, let's ask for more time, have a fresh look. There's nothing wrong with the delay if at the end of it we'll get it and what everybody wants. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. I will come back to you on one part immediately, and Denise will probably agree or say, but I'm led to believe it's got to be spent by 21. I don't think there's any timescale for diversion, even if it is in the remit. The money has got to be spent by then, even if you could divert it somewhere else onto that. If you could follow up again, please, Denise.
Yeah, certainly. Regarding the funding, no, we don't have any flexibility. If we can demonstrate that we've had some problems in implementing the project due to delays because of COVID, that might be acceptable. But to go back and say we want to do a new scheme, that, you know, it's not even worth asking that question. And, you know, sort of talking about best use of public money. This scheme was developed and agreed by councillors in 2016. We took forward, a huge amount of money has been spent on it so far just to get to this point. To radically change it and then talk about doing other elements to it, I can't see how that can be fulfilled. So I don't think that is a viable option. And the delivery in sections, I recognise your comments regarding the delivery of the scheme in 2000. The scheme that was introduced in 2014 in Bognor Regis, obviously that's a few years later, and sort of production methods will have changed and probably be a lot quicker, but it was done in sections and the disruption to retailers was kept to a minimum, and we would hope very much that that would happen in Littlehampton. And also, I understand you will have spoken to traders, but we're also speaking to traders who are very keen to see this scheme go forward. So I think everyone's can view this in a different way.
Is there anything you'd like to comment on, Mike?
Only just to say these are extraordinary times. When we say let's go back to the government because of COVID, it doesn't mean we're going back there because we got problems with the disease. It means that things have changed with regard to what is needed, what we need to do in our high streets now. They will understand that. We haven't tried that. So before we say you can't do it, at least ask that question.
Can I add, we have a contractual agreement with government to deliver this project. They wanted to see a detailed scheme that could be delivered, and that's what they're giving us the money for. If we go back and wish to change that in any significant way, I don't recommend it anyway. That's what I'm saying.
No, but you can't say it would be a big fat no.
I think it would be a very big risk, Mike.
Well, ask the question. Sorry, Chairman.
No, that's noted, Mike. Can I move on to Councillor Turner now, please?
Can I just say before I start, thank you, Chair, is I've still got Denise's any questions on my screen. It hasn't gone back to all the councillors.
I've still got it as well.
Have you? Have you not got the screens?
No.
Let me get rid of that for you.
Thank you, Denise.
Sorry, I thought you had your pictures back because I had. Sorry about that.
No.
Let's get rid of this. Why isn't it going?
Sorry, Denise. Oh, too late.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There's a danger that you're going to need to go back to it with a question. That's the only thing. I thought that's
I
very
will be
literature.
able to open it. Don't worry. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got several points I'd like to make. First of all, I was really sad and disappointed that I actually wasn't involved in this from an earlier stage. But we all know that the town needs work done on it. It needs to be brought up to date, and we need a modern town centre. What I don't want to see is boring. These colours that are being suggested with words like muted and subtle are boring. What is Littlehampton? Littlehampton is a seaside town. What do we associate with the seaside? Buckets and spades. What colour are buckets and spades? They're red and yellow and blue and green. Why are we not using those colours to make Littlehampton bright, happy and cheerful and not boring? It really winds me up. The plan for the clock tower, I'm really pleased that we're hopefully going to keep it the shape that it is, but paint it one of those primary colours so that it stands out. It's boring at the moment because you can't see it. Paint it red or yellow or blue, or paint it rainbow colours so that it's bright and cheerful and encourages people in the town to be happy and cheerful.
Okay.
As far as the street furniture is concerned, what did we all do when we were at school as teenagers at our wooden desks? We carved our names in the wood. And I can see that happening with these. Why can't we utilise the same street furniture we've got, as Mike Northeast has suggested, but instead of painting them boring black, paint them those primary colours? Have a red seat, have a yellow seat, have all these colours that cheer up the town centre and make it a sunny seaside, happy, cheerful town to come and visit. We want to talk, we've been talking about connecting the beach and the river and the town. Why aren't we using the land train? What's the point of having the land train go up and down the seafront promenade for 500 yards backwards and forwards? Use the town train as a tourist attraction that takes people from the beach into the town. They can have a stop at the Lidl's, they can have a stop at the clock tower. It could even go down the high street. If not, it could let people off and it could go round the back and down through Anchor Springs and then bring people back. Many cities and towns use the land train to get people to go round their town and city and use it as a tourist attraction. My husband and I visited Stirling Castle last year. There was a land train outside the castle that took us down into the town. If that land train hadn't been there, we wouldn't have gone into the town. We wouldn't have done shopping. We wouldn't have had a meal. And we wouldn't have bought food because the land train was there. And we want to bring people from the beach into the town and do shopping and have food. So use the land train. Use some of this money as part of the development to encourage the land train to come into the town. let's do something different. And having colour and using the land train is different. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. On that part, I'll ask Peter to come in briefly for the very first bit, and then I'm afraid over to you again, Denise.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
For you, for the involvement, Peter, on the first part of the group.
Okay. I'm not quite sure what the link is there, I'll be honest. I mean, it's up to members to comment on the colours and things like that. The two councils did put forward councillors to discuss these proposals to bring them forward to the Policy and Finance Committee. The Town Council's priorities are clearly set out as to what they want to do, which includes this scheme. I do know that within our priorities, that whilst not a land train, there was a suggestion to do, my brain has gone, that's what they're called, help me, rickshaw type things, which would use that connectivity, but the land train was not in there. I do know that there are major issues in terms of highways and licensing, though, if it starts to wander off the seafront, but that doesn't mean it's no go. Were they the points you wanted me to pick up, Mr. Mayor?
Well, no, you actually picked up bits I didn't. It was part I wanted to pick up as Councillor Turner had a point where she hadn't been involved in any of the discussions.
Oh, I think that was just, I misunderstood that. That's because she wasn't a councillor at the time. I think she was expressing frustration that if she had been, she would have been wanting to be involved at an earlier stage.
Right.
Absolutely right, Peter. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, thank you, Peter. Over to you, Denise.
Yeah, just thinking about the colours and the talk of that. Quite interestingly, the presentation the designers will be giving next week in Littlehampton Town Council, because we only saw it yesterday. They've given some thought to sort of putting further different colours. These are sort of accent tiles within the paving, and they are referencing, you know, ice cream colours, you know, the pinks, the yellows, that kind of thing. So I think they're certainly picking up on that. I think you have to be really careful about using strong colours in any design, because as much as you might like it, lots of people won't like it. So from a design point of view, I can see that it's always quite a difficult balancing act to get something that won't be too offensive to others, but will be liked by many. Regarding the seating, I would say, you know, which I've stressed before, we have really exceptional designers doing this work for us. We're really, really lucky. They have put forward a design scheme, with all the elements in it. And if we start diluting that or taking away from it, it will look, we will lose that, and it will take away from that concept. I believe the wooden seating, in terms of the maintenance, we've checked with our maintenance team to see if they're satisfied with it. They're more than satisfied. Regarding skateboarding, you put the studs in it so people can't skateboard in against it. And then on the land train, just to add to what Peter said, and he might remember this better than me, it's before my time. I think it's been tried. If Miriam Nichols was here, she would tell you about it, because she was involved in trying to get it going previously. It wasn't viable. It wasn't used enough. It would have had to have been heavily subsidised to keep it going. So the alternatives that Peter has mentioned about the rickshaw are really good ideas. So but the land train itself, Littlehampton just isn't big enough to fulfil, to sustain that sort of offer.
Okay, thank you, Denise. I'd just like to bring Councillor Tandy in here as a point of order clarification.
Thank you, Chair. I apologise for interrupting the meeting, but I just want to be clear in what I'm preparing. Are we going to, is this a question session and a debate combined, or are we, because I want to be clear so I don't start talking about things that are irrelevant, or because I think it probably would save time in the way it's been going of a debate and questions. But I don't want to see us going all round questions and then all going round again to have another say if people are combining. Thank you, Chair.
Peter, can you clarify?
Yeah, sorry, I saw that. I did see it as both, Mr. Mayor. I think that by asking a question, it also gives people the opportunity to put forward comments and views at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Freddie.
Am I allowed a supplementary on
Yes.
the responses?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I just want to say that just because a few years ago something was abandoned because it wasn't viable doesn't necessarily mean that in 2021 or from 2021 it wouldn't be, and we should still give it a try. So having the use of making adjustments to have the land train going down into the town, especially if we're going to be developing the town, it will encourage people to go in and see it. So we should be giving it a try and not just dismissing it because a few years ago it didn't work.
Yeah, I think that's something we can note, Councillor Turner, if you're happy with that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I mean, it's a fair discussion to have. Obviously, it doesn't affect the public realm directly, but I do think that the issue that Councillor Turner raises is one that we can revisit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckland now, please. Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. Just waiting.
Am I on the list, Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, James, it swapped over and I'm keeping to the list I've written down.
Okay.
I do apologise, James, but I wrote them down, then it changed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to concur with a lot of things that has been spoken about already tonight in reference to, i.e. the clock tower and the original clock tower staying where it is. Absolutely fantastic. Totally support that. The new one, I'm afraid, the design and everything, I think would lead to complete and utter disaster for the town centre. Also in reference to the cleaning, which Councillor Price has mentioned, and the sheer lack of it in the past, I don't think we should be having a look at the a new pavement if it was actually cleaned and maintained properly. Also, Chairman, in reference to the traffic, I mean, it's been an ongoing argument or discussion with myself and John Edgevet and co in reference just trying to stop the traffic coming up Clifton Road into the High Street. So there's got to be more done, and just having traffic regulations or regulation orders is not going to stop people entering that High Street. There has to be something in the way that stops them from actually going in there. As for the town centre furniture, again, I agree with my fellow councillors. I do not believe that we should be removing the ironwork that's already there. As Councillor North East has said, it's easy to maintain, etc., painting, blah, blah, blah. And I totally concur with Councillor Turner in reference of, reference to the wood being carved and possibly even burnt. And I will say this, Mr. Chairman, is that we were told the longest bench, which isn't the longest bench in the world, was near on indestructible. Well, it wasn't, because within days and weeks of it being installed, slats were being ripped off, things that were being thrown here, there and everywhere. And again, that even got vandalised by people carving their names into it, Chairman. So I actually don't like the idea of this wooden furniture. As for the land train, Andrea, well done. Thank you very much. It was something I brought to Arran District Council and Mr. John Edgevet and I can't think of his colleague's name. He's left, Denise, you know who I mean, who used to be with the Arran District Council. He's moved to Worthing Council and I can't remember his name. But anyway, it was never looked into. We walked the route. We actually spoke about it. It's never been looked into.
And that is for another meeting. It is a great idea, but for another meeting, please.
That's fine, Councillor Chase. Thank you. My main disappointment, Mr. Chairman, is that I asked when these consultations were done, and it was done in Cafe 72 in the back room, and I was a councillor then. I asked for this town centre, if it was going to be rejuvenated, was to become better disabled friendly. And Chairman, I see nothing here within the fact of it being disabled friendly. There's no seating arrangements for disabled people in wheelchairs, etc., to be able to be part of a family gathering if such things are now allowed. But there's nowhere for them to sit. There's nothing that's disabled, no braille, no touchy-feely stuff, etc. And this is one of the main things that I really did talk about to the officers of Arran District Council in reference to it being made disabled friendly, Chairman, not to exclude them. They're a part of our community, and by doing something like this, you could bring more disabled people to the town and they would enjoy it. So in a long and roundabout aspects, I agree there has to be some kind of regeneration, but I don't like what's being proposed at this table. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckland. Denise?
Yeah, so the scheme is obviously DDA compliant throughout. If there are specific ideas that Councillor Buckland feels that could be introduced that haven't been thought of, you know, in terms of flat surfaces, spacing, that kind of thing, that, you know, we're really open to hearing about them. I don't recall specifics being mentioned, but more than happy to speak to him about specifics at another time.
Yeah. You happy with that, Councillor Buckland?
Very happy, because I'm now on the regen and I'll be probably seeing Denise next week anyway. But yeah, I'm happy to have any type of conversation in regards to disabled facilities, etc. anytime. Thank you, Chairman.
I do think that's a very good point with a disabled seating part somewhere, Councillor Buckland. So thank you very much for your contribution. Now I'll go on to Councillor Dr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I reiterate what Denise has said time and time again? I actually sit on the LEP, the Coaster Capital, and this money will, if it's not used for this project, i.e. from the station to the Civic Centre, so Terminus Road, High Street and Beach Road, will be £3.5 million of investment in Littlehampton that isn't coming from the Town Council, isn't coming from the District Council, isn't coming from the County Council. It's coming from outside as a gift, as a grant to Littlehampton to brighten it, to make it better, to turn it into the 21st century, to make it a vibrant, living, more up-to-date destination that residents and tourists want to come in, to stay in, to spend money in, to spend time at leisure, drinking coffee, drinking beer, drinking wine, nibbling cakes, having meals, etc. That's the future for the high street. Retail, sadly, as we know, is dying, and we've got to revitalise. Turning the clock back and revamping something that we've already got that is looking tired, out of date, and above all, incredibly cluttered. We've got used to it because we live here and we walk there, but compare it to modern shopping streets where people want to go, it is incredibly overcluttered, and we need to do something about that. And if we don't grab this money, it will go elsewhere and we will lose the money. Just like Chichester lost its bypass, just like Worthing lost its bypass, because people couldn't agree locally. The money goes elsewhere, other towns, communities benefit, and we will lose it. And I'm not prepared to see Littlehampton losing that. Secondly, we've got world-class design coming in here. We're exhibiting tonight the worst examples of design by committee. Please can we have a bit of that kept? Please can we have a bit of that kept? Please can we have a little bit? And you end up with a design by committee that ends up with a little bit of something to please everybody, and you end up with a mishmash that doesn't actually present a cohesive design that enhances the whole town centre. The current high street is a precinct. It doesn't include Terminus Road, it doesn't include Beach Road, and it doesn't include the over-trafficked road junctions that we've got at the moment. We want to make the whole of the town centre a cohesive, vibrant, living 21st century town centre, not revamping something that's looking rather tired and cluttered. So it would be disastrous, in my view, to ask for a delay. We know what the answer will be. We have to indicate that we're spending this money by the 31st of March next year. starting to spend it. If it overruns on the delivery through at the end of March, that's fine. But we've got to start this. The original start was before Christmas. The committee recommends starting in January, because what we don't want to do is to have the double whammy of biting into the lucrative Christmas trade period in November, December for our traders. Suggestions that the clock tower should be painted a different colour. The whole point of the clock tower is it's a reference to the old pepper pot lighthouses on the old pier, which were both of a similar shape, round in one case, and the other one similar shape to the clock tower that's there. And those pepper pot lighthouses were white, and most lighthouses are white. If you start painting a different colour, it just shows what happens when a committee gets loose on something. It's a reference to a lighthouse design and echoing that in the town centre, and that's why P&F were very single-minded actually about keeping that in its current colour, in its current site, and in its current design. So I'm going to, sorry, the other thing was, Denise showed in the slides that there were single seats. That was part of the suite of furniture. We've said and indicated that we do not want any single seats, any single chairs. These have got to be bench seating. And talking about disabled, those are adequately and admirably designed to allow wheelchairs to come up to them and be integrated into part of them to be the seating. So a wheelchair can be placed at either end of those and actually feel part of the grouping there. So that's important. I do applaud Ian for mentioning the other disabled aids for partially sighted and braille and stuff like that. And I think we do actually need to, that's a detail that comes in the detailed design. So I'm hoping very much that we do, as a council, support the recommendation of Policy and Finance, that we support the retention of the current town clock in its current site, that we do support the wooden, the tree styles, tree maker seating as option 2 referred to in the recommendation, that the existing street furniture should and could be used elsewhere. We've got places around the town, parks like Caffin's Field, Southfields Park, Brookfield Park, that have not got enough seating, and they could really well be adequately redeployed there, and so will not be wasted. And so I make a plea to the council, so let's get behind this recommendation from the Policy and Finance Committee, that we've got these world-class designers coming that have produced a superb scheme for it, to provide a unity of our shopping centre right from the station, right through the high street, right down Beach Road, and let's actually give Littlehampton the lift that it needs into the 21st century and start turning it back into a place that people want to come to, spend money, spend time and lift it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I interrupt? And I've waited till Councillor Dr. Walsh finished. Yep. I'm sorry to say that public realm is blighted with technical problems on our committees. Can we adjourn for 5 minutes, please, Chair?
I mean, what I was saying wasn't broadcast.
I don't know about that, James, but I just have a we may need to revisit a couple of things, but bear with me while I just find out. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Please turn your microphones
Turn your mics off.
Okay.
And we will lose the screen for a moment, hopefully.
Hello, councillors. If hopefully you can hear me. The town clerk is speaking to the mayor at the moment about the technical difficulties. We need another few more minutes. If you can bear with us, please.
Thank you, Jules.
Thanks, Juliet.
Thank you.
Hello, David. When we get the word, I'm going to propose that we go ahead in the way that I said. I will talk it through. So when we go back on, I'm going to speak to Juliet to try and get the thing to fire up, and we'll go from there. When we go back live, when you're told to go live, David, I'll gather everyone together and then I will speak. Yeah, if you just pass it back to me and I'll explain. Okay. Cheers. Sorry.
Right, it looks like we're back, everyone.
Yes, we are back now, Mr. Mayor. Over to you.
Thank you, Juliet. Back, everyone. I will now quickly pass you over to Town Clerk Peter Herbert. You're on mute, Peter.
You're mute, Peter. We haven't heard you.
Oh, that's probably a good thing, actually, members. The first thing I'm going to do is a quick roll call to see who's here. So if I can see most of you, so I'm just going to be swift on this. As you're all moving, I can assume you're there. Is Councillor Rhodes there?
I'm here. Sorry, I was baking a cake.
Is Councillor Seeks there?
Yep, I'm here. I'm here.
And Councillor Malloy?
Yep, I'm here.
I think that's everyone then. So we can take everyone's here. Right, we've had a problem, as you could say, where the message has been going out to the public, but not everyone, in so much as it's been going out on our Facebook page, but not on the website, I believe. I've rapidly taken some advice, and this is it is a decision for council as to what you want to do. But my advice to you here is that there is no need to repeat the presentation. The presentation has been out there in the public array before, and most of the people who have been watching will have seen the presentation. There is no need to go through all of the intro that we've done or wherever. However, we do need to ask those members who've spoken if they can summarise at least their points. Most people will have heard this before, but I do think we need to just revisit that. So if you're a little clumsy first time round, you can make it punchier this time. However, I do apologise. There is, but we are now properly streaming on both fronts. So if you're, sorry, I should say as well, councillors, I have rapidly sought some legal advice on it as to where we stand, and it is a matter of what are the issues. And in fact, the only decision, actual material decision that we'll be making will be relating to the clock tower, which is actually to retain. Proposal is to retain. So the rest are going to be comments to the district council. So if members are happy with that way forward, the only alternative to that is we stop the meeting now and we look to reconvene, which I wouldn't recommend.
Can I propose that we continue with the meeting? Do we actually have to reprise everything that's been said up till now? You know, it's a council meeting. All the council have heard it. A large number of the public will have heard it, and presumably a recording is available or will be available afterwards, where anybody can.
Okay, I'll rephrase it. That's a fair point, Councillor Dr. Walsh. What I would then say, I would rephrase it then slightly, so that if any member wished to summarise the points that they'd made previously, I think that should be available to them, so that anyone else who was sitting out there could hear them.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Can I ask a question?
Is there general assent to go that way, members?
Well, I would just wish that members didn't have to reprise and could actually just get on with the meeting, because it's the councillors who are making the decisions, and we're not asking members of the public to actually be swayed by what we're saying, and they'll be able to see everything that's been said in a recording, rather than having to go back and rerun some of the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I support that, James. Let's progress on those terms.
So could I just ask through you then, Mr. Mayor, is there any of the councillors who spoke previously who feel that they urgently do need to repeat anything? I'm going to take that as a no.
Definitely.
Can I ask a question?
Sorry.
Turner.
Everything that we said earlier on has been recorded, is that correct?
Absolutely,
Then
absolutely.
that's fine. I've got no need to carry on and say again.
Okay. So in that case, then, Mr. Mayor, back to you, and we will continue the meeting.
Thank you very much. We will now go to Councillor Long, please.
Thank you, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I didn't realise it was my turn. I've listened to everything that's been said, and I mean, I'm fully in support of the scheme as a whole. I've had personal reservations, and I will say about the clock, I'm slightly saddened that we weren't able to find somewhere else to put it, but retain it in its existing state. But that's by the by. But anything that will improve our town centre has got to be a really valuable investment. But not just the paving and the street furniture. I'd like to see, and I'm sure the regeneration group are doing this, but this to be seen in a broader view of actually reinvigorating the shops, the shop fronts, the sorts of shops that we have there. This is no criticism of what's there already, but one of the pleasures, as it were, and there haven't been many in terms of COVID, have been the opportunity to shop locally, to have specialist shops, to have butchers, greengrocers. We have a wonderful bakers already in Littlehampton, but those sorts of shops that attract the local people to come in, if we start to see those sorts of moves, then the investment that we're making at the moment will attract, hopefully, more interest from outside. And I'm talking more investment from other sources, perhaps. And as I say, I would just love to see this as an opportunity. Littlehampton's motto is progress, and this is our opportunity to really make some and put us on the map. Looking at other seaside resorts, I have to mention Margate and the huge step that they took to have Turner Contemporary installed. I'm not saying we should go that far, but anything that we can do to improve the look of our town and the linkages between the town centre and its offering, the riverside and the seafront, bring them all up to a standard, and I think that will be an enormous help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Rhodes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jill's already asked most of what I was going to mention about the shop fronts, but I'm also concerned about the parking in the High Street and also in Beach Road, where cars that currently they can park alongside and they can just nip into the 1 or 2 shops that they need to go to and be on their way. And I'm wondering if the people that are doing that might just end up going to one of the superstores because they've got to go and park in the car park, which isn't quite so convenient for them.
Denise?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually picking up on both Councillor Long and Councillor Rhodes' comments. Regarding investment, you know, attracting investment, we know, and it is proven because it happened in Bognor Regis, that if you invest in your public realm well, you attract more investment. We know that shop owners will start to do up their shop fronts. We know that other businesses will be attracted to the place just because it's been uplifted. It looks a bit better and you attract new visitors to a place because of that. So investment does attract investment, most definitely. Mentioning shop local, absolutely is what we want to do. We've got some money given from government, £143,000. It's the Reopening Your Shops High Street Safely Fund. Councillor Walsh is very familiar with this. We're looking at all the measures that we can introduce to help get our shopping centres going again, but for people to know these are safe environments for them to shop in. And one of the things we want to focus on is shop local. A lot of our greengrocers, butchers, bakers have stayed open through COVID, you know, and all through all of this we have been saying to our community, use your local shops. They've stayed open, but also keep that commitment to using them in the future as well. So that's something we're really focusing on as we go through our next stage with supporting our town centres as they open up. And then with Councillor Rhodes, actually I didn't write down your point, what was it? I did want to answer it. So
well, currently you can park on either side of Beach Road and also along the High Street as well. And I'm just wondering if people are not going to bother going into the town because there's nowhere to park and they're going to end up going to the superstore. And can I just say that I really hope that all this investment does bring shops, new shops there, because quite frankly, who's going to come to Littlehampton to go charity shopping?
I think we can see investment has come in the future. One of the biggest investments was the Bad Sense restaurant that's opened. I was so impressed with the fit out of that property. They've invested a huge amount of money. It's the type of businesses we desperately want to attract. They've had some real bad luck. They've hit COVID just at the wrong time. Yeah. So as a council, we'll go out of our way to make sure they get the grants and support that we can give them. We've also invested through a grant from Arran District Council. There's ideas to introduce a pop-up shop within Littlehampton and Bognor Regis. We'll still go ahead with that. We, when the time is right, we'll introduce that into one of the vacant units. So there's lots of ways that we can attract more investment into the town, and we have evidence that it does work in Bognor Regis, and that will be the same for Littlehampton. Regarding the parking, you're absolutely right. That the ability to have places where you can just pull in, pop in, get a few bits, that's really important, and shoppers do like that, and that is, as part of the traffic regulation order, as far as I'm aware, that is being retained, so that won't be lost.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and keep my remarks brief, as it is getting slightly late. I really am in two minds about this, and I think there's a lot there that has potential, and there's a lot there that has missed things. So let's start with the positives. I think a lot of the aims of this project I picked out some of them from the presentation, trying to remove some of the oversized and the traffic dominated junctions, I think has a lot of merit. I think it's sensible. I absolutely agree with what's gone before from comments about it being cluttered. It is a very cluttered high street when you look at it, and that could be improved. And certainly trying to create that sense of connection, certainly from the railway station down to the precinct, is admirable, because you come out of Littlehampton train station and you have no idea where you are. You would not know where the town centre is. So little things like that are really quite encouraging, and I would absolutely support them. And I appreciate everything that's been said about, yes, this is grant money. I understand that it has to be spent on this. My worry is, and it goes back to, I think, what Councillor Long said, this cannot just be seen, and I don't want people to get the idea that this is somehow going to be a magic bullet that transforms our high street. This has to be, if we go with it, because my gut is the meeting is probably going to go with it, this has to be the start of something, and that actually if this is embedded, that actually we don't see that as a, well, everything's done now, because actually it's the equivalent of painting your house when it's full of damp. Actually, there are still underlying problems that we all know about how the high street is changing. So yes, we can give it a new pavement, a new coat, and jazz it up, but the fundamental issues of reduced footfall, of a very fundamental change in what people want from their high street, is still real, and a bit of paving isn't gonna change that. That said, I can't definitely sit here and say that I would fully support it. I think perhaps there are better things to be doing, but if that is all the money is for, then perhaps I need to think about whether it's worth doing or not. But if, as I get the sense that we are going to head probably as a meeting towards supporting this, I have 2-3 questions that I would just like a little bit of clarification on. So first of all, we've seen the pictures of the benches. Can we have a commitment just that in some new public realms you see quite anti-homeless measures like spikes in the benches? Can we just have a commitment that would not be included, is number one. Number two, just a bit of clarity on colours, because on what was Appendix 3 of what came out in the Policy and Finance Committee papers, there is an aerial shot which appears to show that the colour scheme is kind of beige and cream. But then underneath it, there are kind of street level images that appear to suggest it's more blue and grey. So could we just have a clarity on what colour it is, because they look a bit contradictory. If we're going to do either of them, the cream and beige looks a lot better in my opinion. And number 3 is the presentation reference that we would move, if it is agreed, towards design stage in the late summer, early autumn, and I just wanted to ask if there's any plans for any additional public consultation in that, or whether it would just be council. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll ask Denise to come back on that, please. And
yeah, regarding the seating, and I absolutely understand what you're saying about, you know, that the seating is chosen so it is obviously comfortable for people to sit in, the general public or anyone to sit on, but that, you know, sometimes the arms are put on seating so that it's not so easy for people to stretch out and spend the night on, that kind of thing. But really hostile, anti, you know, rough sleeping measures would not be included within that, because that wouldn't be appropriate. Regarding the colours, I think the map you're referring to is just our location map to give you an idea of the scheme. That is just a sort of an illustration of where the scheme is going. The colours that there is quite a range of colours that will be used in it, from a sort of aquamarine tile occasionally to a number of different tiles that will go into it. So there is not just one colour scheme, you know, one colour tone, or two. There will be quite a few. And the presentation that the designers were going to present next week, they've given a bit more thought to it, and that's when I was saying about the candy colours were sort of being introduced, and it was to get an idea of what people thought about that. There is no intention to do further public consultation. As the design detail emerges, we can share that at meetings. But, you know, sort of you get to a point where you have to go with it. We can't constantly change and alter and inform. So what we're agreeing at this time is what we're agreeing, and that will be taken forward. The specifics of it can be shared, but that's not in a sense of consultation.
anything to add on that, Councillor Tandy? Thank you very much. Councillor Malloy.
Good evening. Firstly, I want to start with the benches. We have all been to many high streets, and I cannot personally say I specifically remember the benches I sat on in every high street, or any of them, because benches don't make the high street. They do not give the people the seaside experience that they come here for. They are there for them to sit on. And I completely agree with the design that you've put forward, because I feel it ties us more in with what we've got in Pier Road. And I may have missed it, so please tell me if I have. I haven't seen Pier Road. It's not actually seating, it's the big steps that everyone uses for seating. I haven't seen that heavily vandalised. No. Or burnt. If anyone else has, I don't know.
Denise?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not responsible for that area of you know, public realm, but I'm not aware of it. What I do know is it's very, very, very well used. People love it. People love those steps. Yeah.
And it would tie our town centre in and give us that flowing feeling that we need. I don't think benches define what we are as a town, and if they can be used elsewhere, I think we should use them elsewhere. I completely agree with what we're doing in updating the high street, because we are an old-fashioned seaside town at the moment, and old-fashioned seaside towns die out. They are dying out everywhere, so we need to become more modern to encourage better shopping to come in, like busier shops. But my actual main question was, I didn't see, I don't know if I missed it, we're taking the bulky flower beds out, which I completely agree with, but are we putting any new flower beds in for planting?
I've got to check with the designers, because there's an awful lot of trees going into the new scheme. There are a lot of trees, and what the opportunity is for hanging baskets, that sort of thing, we need to check that detail. But it wouldn't be flower beds. Okay. It would, because the whole idea is to create spaces that we can use more effectively.
And if we're taking our flower beds out, I know you're thinking about putting the signage on the side of some of the shop buildings. Would there be the possibility of a living wall to replace what we're losing in the flower beds?
I don't know that, no one's mentioned that so far, but they are very popular, and I've seen them in other places. They are popular, but they're also very expensive, I have to say, and we've not budgeted for something like that. So it's not saying it's not a good idea, but I just don't know how we'd do it. And also then we move into the complexities of working with owners of buildings. It's quite challenging even to get them to agree to have a sort of ghost sign put on their building, let alone a surface that might be wet and porous and needs quite extensive maintenance. So, but it's a lovely idea, I have to say.
The other thing is with the clock tower, I agree with us keeping it because it's what people like at the moment. with Andrea's comments about colours, is there any way of having lights put in somewhere so that on certain occasions we can light it up different colours if needed?
Yeah, and definitely lighting is something that we want to integrate into the whole scheme. And sorry, I didn't mention that in the presentation. It's something that the town council, you know, the members that we've spoken to previously were really keen on, both to maybe like illuminate, because the decision to keep the tower has only been made recently, but we can look at how that might be illuminated, but also key architectural features in the town centre. You've got some very pretty buildings that, you know, just discreetly illuminated can change the whole atmosphere of a place, and that's something we definitely wish to introduce.
And the only last thing was, I know you said that you're thinking about different levels of curbs and stuff like that, but the current design does show a straight through floor for cars to drive on next to pedestrians. If there isn't specific railings and stuff, would the speed limit through that area be reduced heavily?
Again, that's been mentioned before. Our view, the designer's view, and quite a few councillors' view is it was good to make that area 20 miles per hour. And if we do that, then also all the clutter around road signage is reduced as well. So, you know, we would really support that. And if we were instructed to look into that, we certainly would.
Okay, that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Can
you,
I just go back to something Councillor Tandy said, which I don't think I responded to properly, actually?
Certainly.
It was just when he was talking about, you know, the difficulties our town centres are facing, and, you know, he's absolutely right. It was, you know, it was tough before COVID. It's going to be tough after COVID. There is money coming from central government that we're investing in our town centres, and we're doing our best to make that happen. But one key thing, which I know the town council is really keen on, as we are, is bringing more events to our town centres. Not the right time to do it now, but pre-COVID, we were looking at lots of ideas around bringing events, bringing activities into our town centres that would really attract new visitors, attract the local community to come into our town centres. So there's a number of things that are going on and will go on in the future. We have to adapt to the situation we're in at the moment, but we are looking at ways of making our town centres more viable.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Tandy?
No, thank you, Chair. That was great.
Thank you, Councillor Tandy. Councillor Seeks now, please.
Hi, I've just got a list of a few things just in relation to what other people have said. The first is the counter argument to delaying. If we can't delay because we'd lose the money, but even if we could, if we waited for a year and a half for things to get back to normal, we'd be doing the businesses more of a disservice, because as soon as they are able to actually function and you can have crowds in the high street again, we'd then be digging it up. So in a way, it makes more sense to try and crack on with it as soon as possible, while the high street has to have limited numbers due to distancing, so that when we can start functioning like a normal society again, it's done, rather than wait till we're just about to get back to some sort of normality. The wanting to keep the sort of obvious seaside things of the anchors and the sea wheels and things like that, I think we'll find that if we have a simplified version, we'll actually pay more attention to the real heritage of the high street. If you actually stop looking at the wrought iron and the busy flower beds and the bricks and look up, we've got some lovely old buildings, some flint work, and you don't see any of that because all you see is the wrought iron and the flower beds, and it's so busy at the moment. So we can message about the heritage of the area with our ghostwriting. You know, it'd be lovely if on the side of the Dolphin we had something about it being the most haunted pub in England. You know, let's start pointing out things that are there that tourists will like, because the sort of kiss me quick seaside references aren't relevant to the next generation of people that will be coming down to the seaside. What else was there? The current look of the shop fronts, they are run down, and before this I was talking to John Edgevet about using a section, I think it's section 215, but Denise will know. So we can force the hand, but obviously it's a bit sensitive at the moment, but we can start compelling landlords to better look after their building, and things like the overgrown gutterings. The last thing we want is a load of mould coming on our lovely new pavement, but that will all happen over time. And finally, Freddie's point about it can't just be putting down new paving. I think we all know that retail's changing globally, so they're saying in the future town centres won't be so much about shopping, it will be about experiences, so hairdressers and restaurants, but also going out for entertainment. So we will need to adapt and change what happens in the high street, and this is just step one of that process.
Thank you, Emily. Anything you want to add on that, Denise?
No, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Blanchard Cooper, was it just a comment you had, or did you want to speak?
I wish to speak. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So, first of all, Denise, thank you for adding in the flow chart that I requested. I think for both town and district, it's going to be quite useful because there's been a similar message along the way with my hat on this side and on Aaron, that people don't quite understand how we have got to this stage. So I really appreciate that, and I hope that is going to help clarify things for people on that. I also think we need to understand this is a really exciting opportunity that we've got in front of us. Yes, I've got certain reservations. I kind of looked at the high street, the actual paving. I still think it's in reasonably good condition. However, by the one thing for me that we really do need to do is declutter the high street. It is awful. And I think a good point that Councillor Buckland touched on was the disabled aspect of our town centre. With my husband, belated, sorry, can't think how to word that, but with Chris in the past, trying to go through the high street, for someone who is a wheelchair user or in a mobility scooter, it is difficult. And in decluttering the high street, we will be improving the disabled access as well, which will actually help a lot and will help a lot of people. We do have a lot of wheelchair users and mobility scooter users. So I see the actual decluttering as a real positive thing. With the decluttering, we will be getting rid of the flower beds. They are a throwback from the 1980s, from what I believe. They were what was there, and we built the current high street around those flower beds, which hasn't ever particularly worked that well, because if you consider the ones particularly outside of the works and outside of the old gas showrooms, I'm probably showing my age now referring to that. I can't think what it is these days. But they do make those shops kind of disappear a little bit. So I think decluttering is going to be a real huge positive step. In doing that, we could get rid of those and try and match up the block paving. However, I do think it is always going to look a little bit like a bodge job, in my opinion. So I do think we've got this money, let's use it, let's spend it, let's have a new high street. With that said, though, I do think we need to make sure that we get it right. One of the comments earlier was from Councillor Turner about adding some more colour in. And people saying about different seaside towns and, you know, we need to be fresh, modern, etc. One of the main seaside towns that I always think of, and perhaps it's actually a city technically, is Brighton. Brighton metalwork. Throughout Brighton, it is the one colour. It is a very Brighton colour. It's something you think of as you go along there, or certainly I do. I'm still not convinced that we couldn't replicate that in Littlehampton, particularly using our existing metalwork. No, I'm not saying use it all. I'm not saying use it all in the same places. I'm just still saying I actually think the benches, they have the progress motto on. They have the nod to the seafront, which I still think we are lacking in this new scheme. I would still like to see those reused and the hanging basket bits, etc. The entranceway signs like the big ship's wheels, which if you actually Google Littlehampton is one of the things that lots of people, when they're visiting, have photos of with that. I know certainly my sister and my nephews, when they visit from London, they've had a photo in front of one of those every year since I can remember, when they come and visit the town, which they plaster on Facebook, which is a great bit of advertising. And I don't see anything for those photo moments to advertise the town, because things like that do. The longest bench is actually, my personal view is, I'm not a big fan of it, but it does the job in advertising the town. I cannot see anything in this bland, boring scheme that actually says to me, wow, I am in Littlehampton. There is nothing in this scheme that says to me it's different from any other town I've visited.
Yep.
There is nothing in this scheme where if you took a photo, you would know that was Littlehampton where I visited. At the moment, with what we have got, we do have that element. I know that some people may not particularly like the benches, might not like the ship's wheels. It is a personal thing. However, when you have that photo, you do know that you're in Littlehampton. You do know that's where you was. When you look back at old photos, you go, yes, that was Littlehampton. I remember that bit. And that for me is what is really lacking. I do appreciate these consultants are award-winning. They've done amazing work. Is that work right for us? I don't know. However, I still feel that we have got a really good, exciting opportunity here. I agree with James Walsh about what he's saying about we should not be designing by committee. However, we do need to make sure that we are getting what is right for the people in the town, what is right for the traders in the town. And I'd also like to thank Denise once again, actually, for taking on board the comments that I made about moving the work back to January, because I do think hopefully we might have some people in the town again in December. I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully the shop traders can actually make the most of that opportunity. But I do just wonder, and I did say this at the last thing, and perhaps I didn't word it properly, but I would still like to actually see us investigating the opportunity of having those benches and some of the metal work reused, revamped and used in the current scheme, and to see how it would work. I still think that they would work very well. I agree with the comments that have been made that the wooden ones will be subject to vandalism. I appreciate the ones along Pier Road do not get that vandalism. However, I know that we have had problems with those. I know within the space of a month of it being fitted, those bits that were broken and came off. So there were problems with those wooden ones that were incredibly expensive. I know that that whole scheme had a lot of problems with, let's think back, the metal railings that will go along by the river, bits of those coming undone, pinging off and actually hurting someone. The issues where lots of people complained about the fact that you could actually come off the side of it and go into the road because it's a sheer drop, which actually my husband nearly did once, because there was nothing planned in about the sight lines for people who have got eyesight problems. The bins along the river that were all agreed from that fantastic scheme, those bins along the river, which are not big enough, and constantly the doors on them are open, so they're not fit for purpose, they're not suitable. Never seen that problem with the ones we currently have in the town centre. The concrete, even that they couldn't get right. There's footprints in it, which was never actually rectified. And that's the sort of thing we need to make sure doesn't happen with this scheme. I could continue. There have been so many problems with that lovely scheme along the river, and I do like it. I think it was such a huge improvement, but we need to make sure those bits are ironed out. As I say, my main problem with it is for me, I'm kind of looking at the agenda tonight, and it is 1.3, which is the two decisions within the proposals requiring the town council, yada, yada, yada. And it's basically the town clock and the street furniture. I agree wholeheartedly, we need to keep the town clock where it is, as it is. But the street furniture, I still feel we should be looking at the option of retaining and actually investigating reusing it even in a new colour within the town centre, and I would like to formally propose that. I would love it if there was a seconder on that.
I'll second that, Sir Councillor Cooper.
Thank you.
Beat me to it.
Sorry, just to sorry, my voice has gone. Just to clarify, you're proposing that we retain it. It's not our decision. So you're proposing, recommending to Aaron that it be retained, are you?
I'm proposing that we recommend that Aaron investigate reusing these in the high street and refurnishing them.
Okay. So it's just been,
yeah,
because it's not a decision we can make. So
no, I appreciate that, but yeah. And I'm still happy to consider the other two, but I would like to see how they would fit in with the proposals. We've got the pictures there in the high street of these other benches. I would really like to see our existing ones and how they would fit in with that scheme. I can't visualise that at the moment, but I think there's some real good opportunity there to still keep that. And actually, the thing we could then consider is, say, for example, if they went sky blue. Okay, we've got those benches dotted throughout the town. We have them at the Manor House, we have them along the seafront, we have them in various parks, we have the railings in various different places, and all that metalwork going throughout the town, which then at the same time we could look at actually spending a little bit extra money somewhere to actually change the colour of those, so that then ties in with the town centre, which then in turn ties in with the river, and in turn ties in with the seafront. And actually that way the entire town is actually tied together through a colour scheme and reusing that one element.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Denise, can you come back for me, please?
So, well, it's if it is for the town council to guide me on what they are recommending to Arran District Council, I think that's what's to be done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, it's not. There is a proposal which is duly seconded before us, which members may wish to debate. It has been proposed, it's been seconded, or you may wish to go straight to a vote on it on the basis of the discussion that has already happened.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I've got a note here. I'm going to ask Councillor North East to come back very briefly, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it will be quite briefly. But being involved with the original scheme in 2000, there is some bits of information that I could give which would make this progress a bit smoother. Firstly, can I say I agree with Billy, and yes, decluttering is good, and I totally agree with that. With regard to a lot of trees, this concerns me because in the past we've had to take trees out on police recommendation, and that was due to the fact that they created many blind spots for the CCTV. So there is that problem there with the CCTV. If you put trees in, you'll find that people will hide behind them. In the clock, there is already an electrical duct that was put in originally when it was put there. So all we got to do is pull a cable in that duct and you can have lighting around the clock and also to floodlight the clock if you wanted to. Councillor Turner said about the train, the land train. We did run a land train, a Dotto train, in the early 2000s, and I think it ran for 2 seasons, and really it just wasn't used. People come to the beach to go to the beach. People come to the town to go to the town. There's very little interaction between the two, unfortunately. If we're looking for a theme that's been missed, which we never pick up on in this town, is the strong links we have with James Bond. And I think that should be looked at. I mean, if you look at other towns, they've got statues of celebrities and whatever around, but there is a very strong James Bond theme during the Second World War, and with Ian Fleming actually staying in the Beach Hotel and writing some of his works there when he was the commanding officer of the 30 AU. Thank you, Chairman. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor North East.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, you need to deal with the proposal and that's before us. Then we can get back to any other points as such. But so I don't know if anyone wanted to speak about the recommendation that Arran District Council retain the street furniture to be used both in the town centre and elsewhere in the town. Is that summarised correctly? I'm just looking at
it was to explore that as an option.
Oh, explore the option of retaining.
Yeah, so effectively it's adding on where we've got at the bottom, considering like the two options, it's considering that as a third option. So, because I wouldn't want to rule out the wooden ones completely, I don't think that's fair or appropriate. However, I don't feel we've completely investigated the metal ones being reused thoroughly, and that's what I'd like to see done. So that's why I'm trying to add that one on as the. So if you've got any better wording than me, Peter,
oh, that's fine. So I'm just want to be crystal clear to members what they're having a vote on. So they would be recommending that Arran District Council explore the option of retaining the existing street furniture.
Peter, sorry, I have quickly. Councillor Moy has a question about the proposal.
Okay, I was just trying to clarify what the proposal was.
Sorry, go on. You may quickly anyway. So, do you want to carry on, Peter? Because you may clarify it, and if you don't, I'll ask.
Okay, as I believe it, the proposal is to recommend that the District Council explore the option of retaining the existing street furniture
in a new colour.
I think that okay.
He's probably got that noted anyway.
May I ask the question? Would that be to keep some of it and add some of the new furniture, or just to keep all of it?
I don't think we can, through you, Mr. Mayor. We can't sit here and try and design it. That really is not going to work for us. But so I think there's a question of raising it to Arran and saying. So the question is, do you wish to recommend to Arran that option be explored, or don't you? It is very simple form. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak on street furniture. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Otherwise, we should go to a vote.
I am very disappointed that this hasn't been brought up before and we've got to this stage. We have been through many a meeting and we've made our decisions, 4 proposals, and now it's all changing yet again. So I am disappointed.
Unfortunately, if I may just come back on that, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly, Mr. Blanchard Cooper.
Thank you. I did suggest this at the previous meeting. However, it may not have been explained in quite the way I was hoping it to. I was expecting to see that actually minuted as one of the recommendations. However, it wasn't quite understood. That's what my intention was. That's why I was trying to make it clearer for this meeting. So unfortunately, that's why it wasn't forwarded before this stage. So I hope that explains that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard Cooper. So I take it, Peter, we're going to the vote.
Yes, so we have a proposal.
I've asked to speak and I put my hand up and nobody's noticing.
Sorry, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, James, I do apologise, I didn't see it. Yes,
can I speak then?
Please, James.
Chairman, retaining any of the existing furniture in the high street will diminish the design concept that we're having designed in to modernise. There's an element of wanting to combine some of the old with some of the new, and you end up with a mishmash of styles that will just not work, even if it's in a new colour. That's why when at P&F we discussed what Billy suggested, and Billy did suggest it, it's quite right, but the P&F committee decided not to proceed with that. It wished to retain some of the benches, the seats particularly, at other sites around the town, and I'd be all for recolouring them and using them in Caffins Field, in Southfields Park, in Musebrook Park, anywhere else that needs that extra seating. That would be great, but please not sort of get this designed by committee. Let's keep a little bit of the old to remind us of it, because it will clash with the new style and will not be a unified design of a new concept for Littlehampton High Street, with a unity of design from the station right through to both, hopefully through Surrey Street eventually to the Riverside Walk, but certainly at the moment to the very end of Beach Road. you know, we'll end up with a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's keep the original proposal of asking Aaron to retain existing street furniture for future use at other sites in the town.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Walsh. Shall we?
So sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Was there anybody else through you, Mr. Mayor? Does anyone else want to speak about the seats, or shall we go to the vote?
I think Denise has just wanted to say something. Did you, Denise?
It's really been covered by what Councillor Walsh was saying, because I was a little bit confused really, because I couldn't quite understand the purpose of getting quotes and understanding if things can be sort of redone if they're not going to be included in a new scheme. Completely support the idea of relocating them and refurbishing them and putting them somewhere else. But if we're not going to put them in this scheme, then what's the purpose of doing that at this time? We've always understood that we would look to relocate the seats, so the refurbish of them is fine. And you know, sort of, and it's just being mindful to everyone. Every time you ask officers to get instructions to do something, it costs us money. You know, getting the designs done for the clock tower, we had to commission that work. That was thousands of pounds that wasn't used. I'm not questioning, you know, I'm just reminding you that everything you instruct us to do costs money. And if it's not going to have a positive direct outcome, if there's constant changing minds, deviation, let's think about this, let's think about that. Yes, we can do that, but there's a cost to it.
Thank you, Denise. Right, Peter.
So, councillors, unless anyone else can speak, so just as we'll come back to the other recommendations, but just on this one recommendation, proposal, sorry, which is that Arran District Council, so recommend that Arran District Council explore the options of retaining the existing street furniture, and I think it was in a new colour. Sorry. So I'm going to go through the.
Sorry, can I propose a slight amendment to that?
You can.
Retain the existing street furniture for future use at other Littlehampton sites.
Yeah.
Oh well, we've got that as a recommendation. We have got a recommendation that says that.
That's already recommended.
But it doesn't say Littlehampton. It says other sites, so that it could go out of the town.
Oh, sorry, they're the town council seats, so there'll be a town council yard, and the town council could decide what it wants to do with them at that point. It's unlikely it would want to put them in Arundel, but
we're talking about selling them.
Well, only as a last resort. If they haven't got anywhere to go, they can't just let them rust away.
Okay.
But so sorry. So that amendment is actually one of the recommendations from Policy and Finance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the recommendation then, councillors. Do you need me to repeat it again, anyone? No.
No.
So I will go forward. If you could say whether you're for, against, or abstaining, and I'll go through it in alphabetical order, starting with Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
For.
Councillor Buckland.
For.
Councillor Chase.
Against.
Councillor Long.
Against.
Councillor Malloy.
You're muted, Joe.
No, Malloy.
Sorry, Michelle.
Live.
Michelle, you're muted.
I think she's frozen.
No.
I'll come back to Councillor Malloy. We'll carry on through the rest. Councillor North East.
Oh, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear what.
I'll come back to you, Michelle, if you can hear me. Councillor North East.
Did you get that, Pete?
Sorry, I didn't, Mike.
4.
4, thank you. Councillor Price.
Abstain.
Councillor Rhodes.
Against.
Councillor Seeks.
Against.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Turner.
Turn your mic on, Andrea.
For.
Councillor Walsh?
Against.
Against. And Councillor Malloy?
Sorry.
Can't hear you.
I'm just going to pause, just going to do some counting rapidly here. So,
Michelle, put a thumb up or down.
hang on a sec, don't do that. Let's just see where we are. Bear with me 1 second, councillors.
Peter, on a point of order, please don't announce any votes until you've actually taken them all.
I know, I'm just seeing where we are through you, Councillor Walsh. Well, hoping that Councillor Malloy's going to come back to us, because if she doesn't, then we will carry on with the votes as we are. So,
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
You can. Okay. I'm for keeping the furniture to relocate somewhere else.
but not, sorry, the question was to retain it, to ask Arran District Council to explore the option to retain existing street furniture in a new colour. That would have to be in the high street, because otherwise it's our street furniture.
No, I'm not for that. Sorry. No, I'm against that.
Okay. Sorry. Bear with me again, councillors. 1, 2. So that motion is lost by 6 to 5 with 1 abstention. So we can now move on through you again, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Peter. So you can do your summary now, Peter. Sorry.
I can do some summary. I think there's,
if you do your summary.
There are some recommendations in front of members, but there are also, I've picked up as the meeting's gone on, some comments that I'm sure that members may wish to feed back to Arran, which is totally within your gift as such, and when we respond. So before I get to the recommendations, could I just sort of see whether members are broadly happy with these, with what I've picked up here? One is the importance of the new paving being cleaned.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. The importance of taking into account disabled people.
Yes.
The issue of ensuring that there is short-term car parking.
Yes.
Yes.
The importance of not having, I think the expression was hard deterrents for streets, for sleeping and other street community.
Yeah.
The investigate at some point in the future the possibility of a living wall, which might be a town council initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had one other, sorry. The point that Councillor Bradshaw Cooper came up, the comment that there is a lack of an iconic focal point in the scheme.
Yeah.
Yes.
Isn't the clock that?
The clock tower is that.
Okay, I was just trying to pick up the comments that
when it's lit up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I quickly interject, please?
Yes, Councillor Bucklands.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other one, Mr. Mayor, was the case of which was brought up by myself and I can't remember which other councillor, but it's been talked about tonight. And Denise said about the highways in junctions to stop vehicles, and that I think that needs to be further investigated, because if it's left open, traffic will follow.
Yeah, that was me, Ian. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, members happy with that to include the importance of the TRO picking up that issue?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, were there any?
Add to that, do you wish to reduce the speed in?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
And the speed. So we'll feed those back as general comments through you, Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, can I just come in on that?
Yep.
The comment that Peter referenced and myself saying that I was saying that there wasn't anything iconic. That wasn't what I said at all.
Sorry.
I was saying that I don't feel that the scheme has anything which gives a flavour of Littlehampton. For me, it's just lacking in some personality.
Okay.
But that's just my personal opinion on that. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sorry.
Noted, Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
So that if members are happy with that, because obviously we'll feed these back so that Aaron have got them for their Littlehampton Regeneration Committee next week, I believe.
Yeah.
Then we need to go to the recommendations on the report. I've got a feeling I'm going to probably either have to do these on one by one and councillor by councillor, which is going to be a little painful, but unless members want to take them as a block.
May I propose that we take them on block, since we've debated everything now?
I'll second that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Members, general sense of that. Okay. So the recommendations on block are set out on page 3 of the paper, and I just need to make sure I've got a list of councillors. So going through this again, taking the recommendations on block, I will go through alphabetically again. Those for, those against, and those abstaining. Sorry, the options for you to say are for, against, or abstain. So the recommendations on block, starting with Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
For.
Councillor Buckland.
For.
Councillor Chase.
For.
Councillor Long.
For.
Councillor Malloy.
For.
Councillor North East.
I've got to see if I can support one. I can't support some of the others. I'm going to have to abstain. There's no other way I can vote because you're taking them on block, which I think is very unfair.
Oh no, sorry, through you. I've got to go backwards then. What I categorically said, sorry, you didn't hear me, Councillor North East. Was there any members who wanted to take any of the, do it individually? Did you not hear me say that? Sorry. I think we should. If members want to vote one way or t'other in, then we need to go through them individually. And that's my advice to members. Sorry. If you didn't hear that, Councillor North East, I apologise.
I didn't, sorry. But as I say, I can support some and not others.
No, that's fine. Let me just bear with me a second. I'm going to have to do this. Sorry, this is going to be a bit lengthy, but we've got this far, so we can do it. So
it's going to take all night.
No, so
5 separate votes.
Indeed, we'll get there.
3.4 million. Isn't it worth taking the vote for?
Yeah, councillors, recommendation 1. The retention of the town clock. Now, I've got a feeling that this could be general assent.
General assent, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
The preferred the preferred style of seating is option 2.
Agreed.
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 Abstain.
Abstain.
I think you need to vote. I think
I need to do the vote. Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Abstain.
Councillor Buckland.
No.
Okay. Councillor Chase.
For.
Okay. Councillor Long.
For.
Councillor Malloy.
For.
Councillor North East.
Against.
Councillor Price.
Abstain.
Councillor Rhodes.
For.
Councillor Seeks.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Turner.
For.
Councillor Walsh.
What?
For.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's carried.
Can I have the figures, please, Chairman?
You can indeed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in favour of the recommendation. 1, 2, 3 against, and 2 abstentions. Recommendation 3, which is retain the existing street furniture for future use at other sites. Is there a general assent on that?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay. Recommendation 4, support the retention of residual funding for the use to extend the scope of the public realm, improve, etc., etc. Is there general assent on that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
And postponing the start of it, recommending these be to January. Is there general assent on that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, that's all of the recommendations in front of members then, and as far as that report is concerned, that is finished. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 7, exempt business. There is none. This meeting is now finished, so we can close the live feed. I would like to thank all the staff for all their support through the meeting, and I would like to thank Denise Ryan and her